everyone. Okay, good evening. My name is Odun Eweniyi. Thank you. I'm co-founder and COO of PiggyVest, and here to take a few of your questions. So there are some questions on Question Wave, like Peace said, but I have told them that I will take a few questions from here, and then we'll take a few questions live if you guys have them. So someone's going to go through the audience. If you have questions, just raise your hand and they'll pick a few people, but I'll start with the ones you already submitted. Is that fine? Okay, the top voted question here is, what are my chances of talking operations over a cup of coffee? So I do like coffee, but this was upvoted by 24 people, and there's just zero chances of taking coffee with 24 people. So the chances of talking operations with one person over coffee are super high. 24 people no, so I'll leave it up to you guys to decide. The first person that asks me when I'm on my way out is probably the person I'll say yes to. So, on to the serious ones. What are the most common pitfalls that startups should avoid when scaling their business? This is an interesting one, and I think you guys have heard from many business leaders, from Mitchell, from Ms. Opeke, from Tayo, and from Babaji. They would have touched on several challenges, but I think that one of the most important ones is kind of underestimating the power of the person that you're serving during the building process. So founders, I find that you are so passionate about the problem that you're solving and the vision that you've seen that most of the time you ignore the person that you're trying to serve, right? How many of us have seen the TV show Silicon Valley? Okay, some of you have. So Silicon Valley was a fictionalized version of Silicon Valley where, this group of founders built this product, Pied Piper, for 4 years. And when they finally launched the product, the people that they were building for simply didn't know how to use the product, right? And so that set off another arc. And that's one of the most common but least conspicuous problems that you should avoid when you're trying to build or scale your company. Do people actually want this? It's a question that you must force yourself to answer. It's not the most pleasant one, and when someone asks you that question, sometimes it seems rude, but the truth is, if you cannot answer that to an unimpeachable degree, then you probably don't have a business yet. Okay, how does PiggyVest, that's my company, mitigate or think about the risk of bank runs given our savings or investment model? The person that asked this is probably a PiggyVest user, but thank you for asking. So, Jeff Bezos said something that has stayed with me when he was being asked about competition with Barnes and Noble when Amazon started. And his answer was, the correct response to any form of crisis is the focus on the customer that you're serving. And that's how we kind of approach things at PiggyVest, right? The answer to any kind of run on any kind of business is making sure that the people who are spooked by that business can have access to their liquidity when they need it. Basically what I'm saying is, if someone starts a rumor about PiggyVest somewhere, we don't know where it started from, we don't know who started it. The only valid answer is to make sure that we have enough money to serve those that want to test the system to withdraw their money. How do you do that? You do that by, one, hiring people who are much smarter than you, and so shout out to our treasury team. And we make sure that we have a model that continues to learn daily about people's habits and how they withdraw and how they save. So every particular point in time, PiggyVest has over 150% of what it needs to serve withdrawals that day or that moment in time. And our model continues to learn, so we continue to increase how much we have in liquid cash. Now, what is the best business or startup advice I have ever received, and who did I receive it from? I received it from my mom. She said I should mind my business. And you know what? I think that's actually really underrated advice, right? As a founder, you guys see it all the time on social media. People want your opinion on everything, even the ones outside of the business that you are building. They want to hear what tech people think about politics. They want to hear how you think about the economy. But you don't know everything about any of these things, honestly, and you're probably a student. It's very helpful to kind of weigh properly internally the kind of things that you're contributing to before contributing to them. And it's really served me. I don't have an opinion about everything. I don't have to, and that's okay. Now, how do I get investors for my business? This is an interesting question. There are several ways to get investment for your business. I won't spend too long on this. There's angel investors, venture capital, private equity, and the least preferred one, bootstrapping. You can get funding from your business, for your business from yourself. What is the most important thing that I've learned so far building PiggyVest? I think that I would answer that in a way that's more helpful, which is what's the most important thing that I've learned building a retail company? And it's that you just can never stop trying to please your users, right? No matter how old your company is, no matter how long you've been here for, no matter how big your company has gotten, it takes one person to thank it all when you're building a retail business. And that means that at 1 million, at 10 million, at 15 million people. Look at who, you guys are all seeing what's going on Threads right now, right? And you're seeing Zuck currying the public favor. That's a person who's built not one, not two, three, 1 billion people business. But still, he's still telling us what to do on Threads. He's telling us what he's doing, what their plans are. And so if you're building a retail business, I have some news for you. That never ends. You never stop trying to make those people look at you with favor. It just never ends. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. Every time you have to do it for an increasingly larger group of people, that just signifies growth. Okay. Physical questions, if you have them, now's the time. If I could master one skill or talent that would make me a better investor or entrepreneur overnight, what would it be and why? I just want to be Batman. I don't know if that answers your question. And these are all such getting to know you questions. Guys, just talk to me straight. These have nothing to do with running a business, When launching an MVP, what are some ways to onboard new or first users before and after you have a product? Okay, so I have a friend who's currently launching a consumer business right now. And so I'll just walk you through her journey. The first thing that she's done is identify a problem that she wanted to solve. And the next thing that she did was identify potential users for that problem, potential users for that solution. And then she sat with 1 or 2 or 3 of them to kind of validate the thesis that she had set up, that this is indeed a problem worth solving. After that, she came back to draw the process flow for how the product will work. And then she got an engineer to buy into that vision, right? They've built what I would call an MVP. And for a lot of us, I've spoken to a number of startups that think that an MVP, you have to build it with $5,000, $10,000, but you don't. An MVP for any kind of business could be an Excel sheet where you record transactions. It could be a platform that's built with no-code tools. It could literally be anything that proves at baseline the thesis of the problem that you're trying to solve and that people can reliably use. Not at scale. MVPs aren't meant to serve your next 10,000 users. They're meant to serve your first 100 users. And so when you build an MVP in that way and you onboard people and they're helping you iterate, and then you move from your beta product to a product that the public can reliably see. If you've followed PiggyVest from the beginning, there's a version of PiggyVest that we released in January 2016, on January 8th, 2016. That version of PiggyVest was up for exactly 3 weeks before we had to take it down from the entire internet because it didn't come with security. It didn't come with OTP. It didn't come with a bunch of things. And so we had that MVP go out for 3 weeks. We saw how people used it, look at their habits, look at the gaps that the product didn't fill, went back to the drawing board and relaunched the baseline PiggyVest that most people saw on April 3rd, 2016. And that's why, that's the journey from MVP to a public-facing product that people can use. So you can onboard people at any stage of your building process, but you cannot onboard people at scale at your MVP stage. Okay, physical question.
All right. Hi, Odun. My name is Joshua Daranijo. I'm a tech lawyer who runs a startup firm for startups. And back in May, you said at the Lagos Startup the Lagos Startup Expo, you said charge from day one. That's a very, very important thing to say. But the question I have for you is, what is the best way to approach pricing, especially in our depreciating economy, Nigeria? How do you approach the dynamics of pricing?
So I'm very biased, right? And I have to recognize that I'm biased towards like organic growth. And that's probably because when we started PiggyVest, we don't have any money. So I'm usually on the side of people who want to spend the littlest amount of money to validate their ideas. So when I say charge from day one, I mean it, right? If your product is going to be, so charge from day one isn't collect money from everybody from day one. The ethos behind it is let people know the charges up front before they start to use your product. Look, if you tell me something's free and I use it for a year, and after at the 1 year point, your organization suddenly changes it and says everybody pay 20 naira for this. Fundamentally, that's been dishonest to the user, right? If it's not like, this is not like, oh, due to economic reasons or something like that. You're just overhauling the business model because you intended to before. So the way to approach pricing is there's different kind of pricing models, right? There's free businesses where you don't have to charge at all, and the user is actually kind of your value, right? User growth, AUM products, kind of like PiggyVest and all the savings products, right? Then there's subscription, right? Subscription models can go like either way. There's freemium, where you're using it for free and you don't get access to any of these services, and it can be free forever. Then there's like the, trial period version, where you're using it for a month, but you're aware that you'll pay. And then there's other ones like that. There's, buy ahead of time and stuff like that. But the core of it is when you're building your business, right? I run FirstCheck Africa, for instance. This is a question that we ask like early stage founders. If you're telling me, oh, I'm going to be at 100K users in 1 year, I expect that you have already charted your path to that 100K users, including the pricing, the prices that they will pay you, to get you from 0 to 100K people, 0 to X $1 million in revenue. So if you have that information as a founder, and you must, why don't your users have it too? That's one. The second thing is navigating marketing in Nigeria is a very interesting problem. We all have it, right? And it probably seems easier to tell people it's free and then charge them later. But the interesting thing about Nigeria, again, is that Nigerians will leave. They're not like American users or LATAM users that when you start charging them, they're like, oh, I've moved my entire life onto this product. We have, as a culture, no problem with moving our entire lives off an app that's charging us 10 naira just because they started charging us 10 naira. So what means when you're starting the product, you need to actually think, what kind of value do I offer to people to get them to use this product for X? And that's why you, as a founder, have to have figured out your value proposition, your value creation. Do people know, can they see it? If they refuse to pay 10 naira for your business at the beginning, why do you think they'll pay 10 naira a year into it?
All right.
All right. Hi, Odun. My name is Toby Balogun. My question is, how do you deal with shocks from the environment? Like, you are building in Nigeria, how do you deal with things that, example is the regime we just came out of. Every Friday, you could be expecting something, basically, from central bank. So how do you deal with such shocks, basically?
I mean, I don't think that there is like a formulaic answer to that, because none of us can really predict what's coming. I think that you try to build as much resilience as you can into your business. For instance, what I was saying at the beginning about PiggyVest having a lot of liquidity just in case. So, usually if you look at like global fintech space, right, your liquidity should be around 10%, like that you're holding in liquid cash versus your like big AUM. But Nigeria is different. So we go higher than 10%. And in that way, I think that's kind of how everybody approaches their business. This market is a different kettle of fish. This market is one where, like, for instance, not even this government, right, a past government, where we woke up one day and Providus, can you remember when everyone used Providus virtual account numbers? And one day we woke up and they were all deactivated. You can't really plan for that kind of thing. You can only react to it. Just make sure that your reaction time is short, right? So I think that founders should give themselves grace, be kind to yourself, but also as much as possible, cast your mind into the future, build as much as you can for the, but they're unpredictable. It's hard to do. And also build resilience into your business. Resilience can come in form of people, in form of having the right people, and then in form of non-dependency on people, automating as much of your processes as you can, and then redundancy, right? We all learn from the Providence virtual account number. Now, on every platform, you have at least 3. So that's kind of how we keep going and we keep learning and you keep improving the model. But as far as being a Nigerian founder goes, you can't really outplan the surprises.
All right. Do we have more questions?
Hi, Odun. My name is Timilei. Funny enough, I was one to ask the question about the cup of coffee. So I hope you take me off on that.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, that's
I'm
great.
happy to go for coffee.
Yeah, that's question waveries. So now my question, right, is what is your job description? I know it says CEO PiggyVest. I mean, what exactly do you do at the company? What did you bring to the table that made PiggyVest what it is?
Your question and the cup of coffee.
I'm happy to run through my interview process here. Okay, what do I bring to the table? Okay, so PiggyVest was started by me, Josh, and Somto, right? We've been friends since 200 level, so I'm sure that at the point where we started a company, nobody was bringing anything to the table. We're just 3 people. We're just 3 people who so passionately wanted to do something for our generation. And if you followed our story a little, you would have heard of Push CV, maybe 99 staff, maybe a bunch of other businesses that we run. We ran it as the 3 of us. So when we started PiggyVest, it was interesting. PiggyVest was actually Joshua's idea, right? So Joshua is our CMO, my co-founder, and he got the idea from the tweet about the wooden box and stuff like that. So we discussed it in the group chat, and it's an interesting thing. I'm a computer engineering graduate, but and Somto is a mechanical engineering graduate. But the interesting thing is, Somto is a far better coder than I could ever be, even if I sat at my computer for 1,000 years. So when Joshua brought the idea to the group chat, Somto is the one who built the MVP in literally 8 days, right? And if you have ever, been with 3 of us, it's very easy to see why we fit in the roles that we fit in, right? Josh is the people person, the finder of the ideas on Twitter. Somto is the builder, and I'm what they refer to internally as the keeper, right? And so, operations. We needed one person to be facing the customers. We needed one person to be building the product, and we needed one person to figure out how we make money. So here's where I brag a little. I am a computer engineering graduate, but I did graduate top of my class in computer engineering. Fantastic at math, fantastic at all elements of just keeping something in check. And it just felt natural that whatever else that wasn't marketing or that wasn't the tech and the building of it will fall onto my shoulders. Obviously, that's expanded now from just a general role to heading, the legal team, treasury team, finance team, accounting. All of these fall under the general operations division. So every day I wake up, I actually cannot tell you, oh, this is a templated list of my activities, because I just have to get information from maybe 10 people before I even begin my day. But it's very interesting. I really encourage people to go into operations because it's, one, super flexible. You learn everything. You have taken a lot of information and pass it out. And if you're a person like me who doesn't like to do one thing for too long, just wants to keep being on the move, operations is perfect. Any other questions?
Any more questions?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Hi, Odun. My name is Adaobia Jebo, and my question is, do you have any hacks around acquiring valuable data for an idea, to validate an idea? Nigeria is already struggling with, the data issues, so...
Yeah, I would like to say yes to that, but no, actually, I don't. One of the things that... I was at an interview last week, and someone said, how would I describe me and my co-founders? And I said I would call us a group of people that just try, right? In 2013, actually, Somto built something called CV Flash. People were using it to rewrite their CVs. And he said, oh, people keep asking me, after I rewrite their CV, can I help them send it out to people? And honestly, we didn't have a lot of data beyond just one data point. At that day, I was researching the unemployment rates in Japan. And I realized in Japan, at that time, in 2013, there was 20 people to 1 job, right? But in Nigeria, in 2013, there was 328 people to one admin role vying for it. And for me, that was enough, right? Let's try. Let's see if it works. And we ran Push CV for a time. The same thing with the idea for 500 dishes. We are like, okay, looking at Nigeria as a different kettle of fish. And I think that it's both good and bad, right? One is if you don't have like a proper support system, you can't just try things because you invest resources. If it doesn't work out, you lose it. But Nigeria is also a very interesting market because one of the things that we've seen is models that have worked in countries with data seldom work here. And for me, that's very validating because it means that we don't really have to wait on complete data to start things here. Nigeria is now on its way to getting the right data for all of these things that you have. Like there's, I don't know how many fintech companies now serving the market, giving us indications of what people can afford, what they can't afford, what they can buy, what they can't buy, which mode of payment is better. But we're not quite there yet. I think the data that you have now is sufficient to be able to tell yourself, I want to try this, I want to build this, and be able to iterate on the idea if you have it.
Thank you.
Hi, Odun. Yeah, my name is Kwejo. I have 2 questions. In your previous interviews, you mentioned that PiggyVest has raised only about $1 million. So far, how have you guys survived in the market, considering that that's a very small amount of money? Then, sorry, not a small,
I beg to differ.
a small amount of money in tech. Then, secondly, you guys have a referral system. How has the referral system, what role did the referral system play in the growth of the users of PiggyVest?
Okay. So, so that information is kind of accurate, 1.1. And that's all I can say about that to avoid lying. But, for a while, in 2018, that is what we raised, right? And in 2018, PiggyVest was a team of maybe 15 people. And by the time we, decided to heads down, continue to run the business, we hit profitability. So PiggyVest is a profitable company, and that's why external injection of funds isn't compulsory for us, right? We've run quite a sustainable business. And so, we never report our numbers publicly, but I'm not lying, Sha. So you can. So fundraising is in our future, though. I'm not saying we will never raise again or that was sufficient, but we are a profitable company that's able to run itself on the money that it actually makes for the business. Now, referrals. That's very interesting that you mentioned that. In December 2016, right, after 1 year-ish of running the company, we came on Twitter on December 31st, and we saw that every single person who was withdrawing was coming to tweet, hey, I've withdrawn my money from PiggyVest with interest, though. One thing that was interesting about that was, at that time, our automated withdrawal system wasn't even in place, and it was just myself, Somto, Josh, IBK, AY, and Terry that were manually pressing withdrawals for people to make sure that they got it on time. But what that did was create this interesting network effect, which is important for you when you are a founder that hasn't raised money, right? It got so wide that OC of Bit99 FM was one of those that tweeted, I've gotten my money. And that went wild. And people started sending others to the platform. And it was almost like a light bulb moment for us where we're saying, what if we rewarded people for sending people to this platform? Referrals were a big part, in-house referral systems were a big part of our growth. And it wasn't just, I'll give you 1,000 naira for bringing the person. If you've ever used PiggyVest, you know the referrals are stressful. You will take the person through 5 steps, complete, before we give you that 1,000 naira. Now, we've paused it for a while because Nigerians, like machine learning, just get smarter and smarter, and they've been gaming the system. So we're now rebuilding so that we can be ahead of it. But if done well, if executed correctly, referrals are actually an interesting way to grow your business.
Okay, one last question. Yeah, nobody has asked from the back. Hi.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, good evening. My name is Ernesto, and I work with Sava. So I have a real question. Just earlier today, we were talking about operations, right? And just during the break, when we went to have lunch, I was talking to a friend, and he's like that, I've worked marketing all my life, and I'm contemplating crossing to operations. And now that you mentioned operations, I just wanted to ask you, for someone like that, what would you tell the person? Like, what are the baby steps to take to delve into operations? Thank you.
Honestly, I think that's a very interesting question, and the answer is so easy that I'll take one more question after that. Operations is one of those, like, when you're entering into it, you don't really need any prerequisites. Like, it's one of those, like, super I will learn anything kind of work. It's a generalist position. So you need to know a little about everything, but you don't have to know everything about everything. Your friend has worked in marketing. That's a very interesting skill to have when you're trying to become an operations person, right? So it's just a matter of upskilling in all the other departments, like like within a company, right? And it's not that you have to know everything. You don't have to learn to write code and then learn how to write content, but you have to understand what each of those roles, like what they do and how they affect the business, and be able to significantly show that you can make good decisions for those departments.
All right. Last question.
Okay. Hi, Odun. So I have two questions. It was tied to what he was saying. I want to get. You said you're now profitable. All right. So is there a way? How do I explain it? Is there a model that helps you that you can share in terms of cash allocation? How to ensure that even though as a business, if you're getting money consistently, cash is like oxygen. There's a way you can allocate money. Maybe, I don't know how you guys do it, but that system. Then secondly, you raised money. So I'm thinking there's a cap table, all right? So in terms of voting rights, is there anything like voting rights that maybe you guys can be pulled out of the business because you don't? But I'm just, that kind of, because they have cash. Investors have cash, so I want to get that system.
Okay, so this is actually an interesting learning point. Great for a round-up question. One, model, cash allocation. I can't share it, but I can tell you that profitability is math, right? How long does your company need to exist, and how much do you have to spend, and how much do you have to make sure that, so there's a point we call break-even, right? Break-even is zero, right? Where the amount you make and the amount you spend is equal to zero. What's profitability then? Profitability is where you're now plus, on the positive side, where the amount you spend is significantly less, or even remain profitable, it can just be slightly less than the amount you've made. That's the point. Now, every business has a unique model. I could share PiggyVest model with you if we talk now, and it won't make a difference for what you're running, because your business has its own unique path to, and be serious, you can remain unprofitable for 5 years, and that's perfectly okay. Do you get? There's no formula for any particular business. When did Amazon hit profitability, right? If you think about it. And once they hit that point, they've not stopped since. And for some businesses, it's right after 2 years. So you have to know what the intricacies are for your business. If you run a retail business, how much do you need to spend to make X amount? And how much do you need to spend to exceed X amount? How long will it take? What do you need? What are the resources you need? That's your financial model. And fortunately or unfortunately, it's unique to your business. The only person that will benefit from our model will probably be someone that works in, I don't know, CarryWise. Do you get? So it's not going to help anybody else in their own business just because they have that information. You have to be able to sit down and do the math. And at the beginning stages, it's actually not as complex, right? What's your journey to 100 users? How much do you spend to acquire those 100 users? What do those 100 users have to be giving you to make sure that you're equal to zero or a positive number? Now, cap table, sir. Oh. Is it on this? Okay. Cap table formulation. There are voting rights, there are investor rights, there are information rights. And this is like a proper class, if we're going to be honest with it, because it's one of the things that Eloha and I would tell early stage founders when they're starting a business. You have to be very careful who you let onto your cap table. We haven't raised a lot, so we have 4, 5 investors maybe. Do you get? And you as a founder need to be very careful to make sure that the cap table that you put together isn't one where a group of people can wake up and remove you. I'm heavily biased towards a founder-led company. Some people aren't, so it depends on you, really, and how much information you have at your disposal. And there is a lot of information about this actually available on the internet. How do you form your cap table? What are the rights that you can afford to give up? What are the rights that you can absolutely afford not to give up if you want to look up in 5 years and still be running your business?
Thank you. A round of applause for Odun, please. One last question from a member of the team here.
Hi, Odun. My name is Samson Adeyemi, and it's always a pleasure to hear you speak. So my question is, if you can do something differently to enable you to build all that you have built today, like let's say you are starting from scratch, what will you do differently? Not on the business side of things now, but personally, like as a person to your own self, what would you do differently?
Okay, this is the one question I didn't get to answer from Question Wave, and I'll just direct it to women. Sorry, guys. The one thing that I do differently is kind of believe in my own source, right? Every day I wake up, I look in the mirror, and I look at this journey, this incredible journey that I've been on, and I also remember the moments of self-doubt, right? And everyone gets self-doubt, but if you're a woman in tech, it kind of hits differently. So I look at myself and tell 2013 Odun, it's perfectly okay. People are going to adjust. I have a tattoo here that says, be you, the world will adjust. And, that's what you should continue to be because the world did adjust. I am speaking to you guys.
Thank you so much. A round of applause for
Thank you so much.